What's going on, everybody? This is Davon Marquise West, aka Mark West from StudyWithMark.com. And if you're watching this video, it's because you want to pass your macroeconomics CLEP exam. You're in the right place, baby. So this is how this video is going to work. To my left here, I have the College Board breakdown, and then in front of us, I have this very amazing study guide that follows the College Board breakdown to the T. And I'm going to read the main topics here, and I'm going to briefly cover some of the things that are going to be on your exam. I'm not going to be able to get through every single thing. So for sake of time, I'm going to cover what I think is the most pertinent details. I'm going to give you a starting point. That's the main goal of this video, is to give you a starting point. I don't recommend you just listen to this video and then go and take your exam. However, I've had many people tell me that that's exactly what they've done and they passed their exams. So I'll let you do with that whatever you will. Let's go ahead and get started. I don't want to waste any more of your time. All right. Also, by the way, if you want to get a study guide like this, or this one in particular, stick around. I'll tell you how you can get that. Or if you lazy and you just want to get straight to it, hit the description and you'll find out how you can acquire such a study guide. All right, so we're gonna start with basic economic concepts. We're gonna talk about scarcity, choice, and opportunity cost. Again, everything that I am mentioning is going to be on your exam. I cannot stress that enough. All right, so you need to know, and that's how I'm going to introduce these things. I'm going to say you need to know, all right, because you do, what scarcity is. So you need to know that scarcity is the fundamental economic problem where resources like land, labor, and capital are limited. All right, from there, you need to understand what choice is and how it arises, because individuals, businesses, and governments must decide how to use these scarce resources. All right, you need to know the basic function, or not basic function, but the basic idea of opportunity cost, and that is, cost is the next best alternative foregone when a decision is made. So, for example, you know, you didn't want to go out with your friends because you had to study. The opportunity cost of that decision is all the fun that you would have had if you would have went out. If that makes sense. All right, next, we're briefly going to touch on the production's possibility curve. Again, I'm not going to go into everything, but I'm going to tell you what you need to dive further into. All right, so when it comes to the production possibilities curve, this is a graphical representation of the trade-offs an economy faces when producing two different goods. So you need to understand the assumptions, right? Only two goods are being produced, resources are fixed, technology is fixed, the economy is operating efficiently. All right, that is the assumptions of the PPC. You need to understand the different points on the curve, the points inside the curve and outside the curve, and then you need to understand shifts in the PPC. So, for example, an outward shift means economic growth, an inward shift means economic decline. You also need to know the law of increasing opportunity costs. You need to know about absolute advantage, comparative advantage, and specialization in trade. So absolute advantage is when a country or an individual has an absolute advantage if they can produce more of a good or service using the same resource as another country or individual. For example, the U.S. can produce more wheat per acre than Canada. So the U.S. has an absolute advantage over wheat production. Comparative advantage is a country has a comparative advantage if it can produce a good at a lower opportunity cost than another country. So then you need to understand what next you need to understand what sorry about that, guys. You need to understand what specialization in trade consists of. So specialization leads to more efficient production, greater total output. Trade allows countries to consume beyond their production possibilities. So definitely do a deep dive into specialization in trade. All right, now let's talk demand, supply, and market equilibrium. So demand, the quantity of goods or services consumers are willing and able to buy. You need to understand the law of demand, and then the basic concept of supply. Sorry about that. The quantity of goods or service producers are willing and able to sell at different prices, or different price points, different price levels. So then you need to also understand what the law of supply is. And when we talk about market equilibrium, this is something that occurs when the quantity of demand equals the quantity of supply. All right. So it's like the intersection of supply and demand. All right. So you need to know what surplus is. You need to know what it means to have a shortage. And also, you need to understand the different shifts in equilibrium. So, for example, if demand increases, then that means there's a shift to the right. All right. And price and quantity rise. Right. So demand rises, then price and quantity rise. Demand decreases, price and quantity fall. If supply increases, shifts right, and this is on the graph, the equilibrium graph. Price falls and quantity rises. If supply decreases, shifts left, price rises, quantity falls. If that was confusing for you, gosh, sorry about that, guys. That was confusing for you. Good. That means that you need to understand it more, and you need to do a deeper dive into it. All right. Determinants of supply and demand. So you need to understand the determinants of demand, the shift factors. So, for example, taste and preferences. Increased preference for a good increases demand. Some other determinants for demand: income. Higher income increases demand. Price of related goods. You need to understand exceptions of the determinants. The number of buyers in the market all determines fluctuations in demand. And then determinants of supply: input costs. Higher costs decreases supply. Technology, advances in technology increase supply, right? Taxes and subsidies. Taxes decrease supply, subsidies increase it. Expectations, if firms expect higher prices in the future, they may reduce supply now. And then number of sellers. More sellers increase supply, right? The more people you have in the market selling more products, then you have a higher supply. All right, next you need to understand price controls, price ceilings, price floors, and how tariffs work. So price ceilings are maximums or legal maximum price for a particular good. So for example, rent controls in a city. And then price floors are legal price for a good. So minimum wage laws, right, is an example of that. And then tariffs are taxes on imported goods. So what's going on right now with Trump imposing tariffs on all these different countries, that means those countries bringing goods into the United States are getting taxed at a certain rate. All right, next let's talk about measurement of economic performance. So you need to understand what national income accounts are. So national income accounts is an accounting system that measures the economic activity of a country. So you need to really do a deep dive and understand what that is. You also need to understand how it tracks GDP. You also need to know what GDP is, gross domestic product, and also gross national product, and net national income and income. All right. And it tracks these things to assess an economy's overall health. And you need to know how all of those different concepts commingle with each other and how it affects the health of the economy overall. Flow of income. You need to know what the circular flow model and how this basically illustrates how money moves through the economy between households, businesses, the government, foreign markets. You need to know the two main sectors: the product market, where goods and services are bought and sold; the factor market, where households supply land, labor, and capital in exchange for wages, rents, and profits. All right. Again, we just talked about GDP, but you definitely need to know what GDP is. GDP is the total market value of all final goods and services produced within the country's border in a given period of time. You need to understand how gross domestic product is measured. You need to know what the formula for gross domestic. Lord have mercy, I'm talking too fast, guys. Please forgive me. You need to know the formula for gross domestic product. All right, and that formula is gross domestic product equals consumption plus investment plus government spending plus net exports, where X is your exports and M is your imports. All right. Also, you need to understand what real versus nominal GDP is. Nominal GDP is measured at current prices. Real GDP is adjusted for inflation. GDP deflator. This is used to convert nominal GDP into real GDP. And the formula for that is real GDP equals nominal GDP divided by GDP deflator times 100. Also, you need to understand the concept of inflation. You need to know that inflation is the rate at which general level of prices increase You need to know why that happens, the different reasons for inflation. Also, you need to understand and know the basic concept of formula for the formula for inflation, which is right here. It's new price level minus old price level divided by old price level times 100. All right, so next are price indices. Okay, so here we have the price index. You need to know what the consumer price index is, what it measures. All right, the consumer price index measures the average change in prices of fixed baskets of goods and services consumed by households. Producer price index measures measures wholesale price changes. GDP deflator measures the overall price level changes in the economy. We talk about nominal versus real values. So nominal values are measured in current prices again, and then real values are adjusted for inflation. Real interest rates equal nominal interest rates minus inflation rate. All right, so these are all things that you want to understand. You want to get a better grasp of, be able to explain it to yourself or to a friend. Next, demand pull versus cost push inflation. So demand pull inflation is caused by excessive demand exceeding supply. Cost push inflation is caused by increased production costs. So like wages, raw materials. A good example of this is a rise in oil prices, increases transport costs, raising prices across all industries that consume or that need oil or need to produce oil or use oil. Then you need to understand cost inflation. So for example, shoe leather cost is increased transaction costs as people try to avoid holding cash. Menu cost refers to the cost of updating prices frequently. Uncertainty makes long-term planning difficult, and redistribution of income refers to unexpected inflation benefits, how unexpected inflation benefits borrowers. So when the idea is when interest rates are cheap, people borrow money, buy assets, and redistribution of income. That unexpected inflation, it benefits the people who hold assets, who are able to borrow cheap, buy assets, so buying houses at really low interest rates. But it hurts people who are not investing in assets or borrowing to buy assets because your dollar is worth less now. So if you're a saver, now your money is worth less. All right, guys, moving on for the sake of time to national income and price determination. So what is aggregate demand? I don't know. You need to know. I mean, I know. But anyway, you need to know what aggregate demand is. So the definition of aggregate demand is the total quantity of goods and services demanded across all levels of the economy at different price levels. And you need to understand the formula for aggregate demand, how that's measured, and how it's formulated. I don't know. Sorry, guys. I've been doing this all day. All right, what are the determinants of aggregate demand? You need to understand the determinants of aggregate demand, changes in consumer spending. So income levels decrease, they rise, etc. Consumer confidence, tax policies, changes in investment spending. So interest rates, if interest rates are cheap, people are going to borrow more, they're going to invest more. Vice versa, if they're expensive, they're going to do less of that. What are expectations on businesses and companies and corporations? Changes in government spending, so fiscal policy decisions. Changes in net exports, different exchange rates between countries, foreign demand for domestic goods. So if we produce something here in America and there's other countries that have a high demand for that good, that's going to be a determinant of aggregate demand. You need to know what the multiplier crowding out effects are. You need to know the formula for that. Multiplier equals 1 over 1 minus marginal prosperity to consume. That is MPC. You also need to know what that is. All right. MPC is a fraction of additional income that is spent. So higher MPC is going to give you a strong multiplier effect, right? Crowding out effect refers to government borrowing, increasing interest rates, and reducing private investment. And this occurs when fiscal expansion is happening. So basically, increased government spending. All right. So think the last time that happened, COVID-19, right? The government had to cough up like trillions of dollars during that last pandemic. All right, now we're going to talk aggregate supply. So you need to know what short run aggregate supply is. And you need to understand what upward sloping is. And this is something that reflects in the short run wages and prices when they are sticky and do not adjust immediately to changes in demand, meaning they stay longer, and they take a little bit while it'll take a little bit longer to adjust to the changes in the economy. And then long run aggregate supply is at full employment output, which basically means that it reflects that in the long run, wages and prices adjust and the economy reaches its natural level of output. So understand the difference between those two things. Then you have short run, long run analyses. So short run, prices and wages are slow to adjust. Output can be above or below full employment. Long run, wages and prices fully adjust. Economy moves toward full employment. That's kind of like the simplified general version of that. Sticky versus flexible wage prices. Sticky wage prices. So contracts and social norms prevent immediate wage adjustments, can cause short-term deviations from full employment. You need to understand flexible wages and prices. So, for example, in the long run, wages and prices adjust, restoring equilibrium. We talked about determinants in aggregate supply, changes in resource availability, labor force growth, natural resource availability, changes in technology, changes in government policies. This is just like a quick review. All right, we talk about macroeconomic equilibrium. We have short run equilibrium and long run equilibrium. So short run occurs when aggregate demand and short run aggregate supply, that's SRAS, intersect with each other. And it determines the current price level and real GDP. Okay. Long run equilibrium is when aggregate demand intersects with long run aggregate supply, and the economy operates at full employment. If those concepts are confusing for you, definitely spend some time with them, okay? Because, like I said, they are going to be on your exam. I can guarantee you that. Okay, now we're going to get into the financial sector. So we're going to talk money, banking, and financial markets. So you need to know what money is. It's a medium of exchange, a store of value, a unit of account. You need to know what the banking system does. The banking system facilitates lending and borrowing, creating money through fractional reserve banking. Financial markets are markets where financial assets like stocks, bonds, and money are traded. You need to know the measures of the money supply. So you have the M1 money supply, which is the most liquid asset. So this is like cash, cash and checking deposits. And then your M2 money supply is your M1 plus savings accounts, time deposits, and money market mutual funds. All right. And it will behoove you to know what all of those things are. You need to know how banks and the creation of money work. Central banks in particular, banks operate under fractional reserve banking, where they hold only a fraction of deposits and lend out the rest. Money multiplier, this determines the total money supply created from initial deposits. You need to know what money demand is, okay? Demand and the various things that make up money demand. So that's transaction demand, precautionary demand, speculative demand. You need to know how all of those things influence money demand. You need to understand what the money market is. You need to understand how short-term borrowing and lending affect the money market. You need to know what the money supply curve is, and you need to know what the money demand curve is. Moving on, you need to know what the loanable funds market is. Okay, the loanable funds market, and the market for borrowing and lending funds. All right, excuse me. The loanable funds market is a market for borrowing and lending funds. It's a supply of loanable funds, which comes from savings. So people put their money into banks. Banks hold onto all this cash. They invest that cash in a asset, usually something like bonds, something very low risk, and something that gains a certain amount of interest that's consistent and that's predictable. And from that, they're able to borrow or lend money to people in need or businesses, right? That's how banks make their money, and then they get paid on the interest. So you need to understand how that whole system works. Then finally, you need to understand central bank and how they control the money supply. So the central bank, Lord, the central bank, the Federal Reserve in the U.S., regulates the money supply to stabilize the economy. In theory, controls monetary policy using various tools. You need to know the tools of the central bank. So some of the tools include open market operations, so buying and selling of government bonds, rates, so interest rates. They can lower interest rate or lower interest rates. They can lower interest rates. They can raise interest rates. And then also they can set reserve requirements. Okay, central banks set reserve requirements for other banks. So for example, they tell banks, hey, you need to have this much cash on hand, a percentage of deposits. You need to have this much in reserve. All right. Closing out here, for sake of time, you need to know the quantity theory of money. All right, and this is something that states that money supply directly affects price levels. You need to know the equation of exchange. All right, so MV equals PQ, where M is money supply, V is velocity of money, how often money changes hands, P is price level, Q is real GDP. And then we already talked about real versus nominal interest rates, but again, I'll go over it one more time. Nominal interest rates, the stated interest rate before inflation adjustment. Real interest rate is the adjusted for inflation rate. So it's showing true borrowing costs in real time. And the formula for that is real interest rates equals nominal interest rate minus inflation rate. All right, guys, for sake of time, I was not able to cover every single topic, but I did cover what I feel are the most important things. If I had to pick them out, all right, from a test taker's perspective, again, this is just something that's going to give you a starting point, okay? The goal of this video is to help you prepare, alleviate some stress, alleviate some fear. Hopefully I did that. Hopefully I was able to, give you some insights on where you should start. Again, if you want this study guide, if you're interested in a study process that's put together, already ready to go, like white glove service, if you will, make sure you stop by studywillmark.com. Everything is super affordable. I have flashcards, I have study guides, I have 3-week study plans, everything you need to pass your exam. I have my ultimate CLEP study course. I made it just for you, 8 years of doing this. It is dialed in, it is ready to go, it's waiting on you. So if you need that, please make sure you stop by studywillmark.com. Got everything you need in the description. Thank you guys so much for your time. Reach out to me if you need help. All right. If you don't want to spend no money, I get it. I feel you, but I'm still here for you. All right. So shoot me an email and I'll do what I can. All right, guys. Take care. Till next time. Love and peace. Peace and love.